Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about the new Pixar film Elemental. This film is about a world where water, fire, and other elements of the earth kind of all come together into one city called Element City, and they all like coexist with each other. There's really no people in this world. It's more so like earth and rocks and stuff like that. And so, what this film really focuses on is a family played by a bunch of fire people, like little fire creatures, and they have a daughter named Ember, and they run a store in Element City. And the fire people are kind of sanctioned off the most out of all the other elements. A lot of the other element characters don't really like to interact with fire characters unless they have to. So there's the shop that this character Ember runs with her family. She's the daughter of a mother and a father that moved from a different country into Element City to start this business. And so her family really wants her to be the store manager, and there's a lot of responsibilities thrown at her. But she has a temper issue and a bunch of other stuff that's preventing her from basically becoming the store manager for her father so that her father could retire properly. But things kind of really get messy when Ember meets a water character named Wade, and Wade works for an inspection company, and unfortunately, the store um, faces a lot of citation problems. It could potentially run the store out of business, put Ember and her family, and her parents, and her family just out of work to begin with. So basically, Ember and Wade try to make an agreement, a proposal for each other, so that her store doesn't get shut down. Wade doesn't get in trouble with his job either. And so over the course of this movie, they have to figure out what exactly needs to be done so the store can stay in business because there is a lot of leaky pipes and a bunch of other citation problems that the store is running into that might cause it to go out of business and be shut down permanently if those citations aren't met. And over the course of this film, too, Wade and Ember kind of start having feelings for each other, more so Wade than Ember does. But over the course of this movie, too, the film has to kind of figure out, can water and fire characters fall in love with each other? Is it safe for them to basically touch hands with each other? All these things are answered over the course of Elemental. But overall, guys, I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I always enjoy when Disney and Pixar always releases a new film, specifically an original story. So I really enjoyed this movie. I always enjoy when Pixar puts out something original. They don't base it off of an adaptation or a comic book or anything like that. They go in making kind of their own thing, their own story. I really liked Inside Out. I really liked Turning Red and some bunch of other stuff that really felt very original when they were released. And I really enjoyed both those films and a bunch of other films they've worked on that are just completely original, completely from their imaginations of their artists. And Elemental definitely is another great Pixar movie. So, for my positives and negatives of Elemental, this film is definitely a visual cinematic treat. All the artwork, all the animation, the way the characters move around, the way the elements interact with the environments, all of that's very well done. It's a very visually appealing movie. Even small things like when Wade is standing in like an area where the sun is very bright in the sky, you can see kind of all the water and ripple effects in his water skin and stuff like that. So the film is very visually satisfying. It's just a very fun film to look at. I never felt bored during this movie just for the simple reason that almost everything visually was very appealing to look at. The film has a lot of messages as well. It has a journey about immigration. It has a message and a journey about the American dream. Like I said, Ember's parents moved here from another country. And they moved into Element City. And so the film also talks about how they had a hard time finding a place to live at first because there wasn't a lot of elements that wanted to have a neighbor as a fire family and things like that. How it was difficult to start the business. They did have a lot of leaky pipes upon moving into this building where they started the business. They explore all of this very early on in the film, even before Ember is born. And it really is about the American dream too, about moving to the U.S. Basically, I can probably safely assume that's where Element City is located. It's probably like the fictional version of New York, I guess. And starting your own business, making it big, making a name for yourself. The film explores all this stuff over the course of Elemental, and I think its messages and its journey that it takes us on are also very, very strong. I also really liked Ember as a character. It's just a very fleshed out character. Definitely a lot of character arc she has to go through. There's even times where she even questions if she wants to be around Wade or not, just because of how dangerous it could be for a fire and a water character to um, really get close with each other. And this the voice performance too. Unfortunately, besides Catherine O'Hara as Wade's mother, I really don't recognize a lot of the voice performers here. But specifically the actress who voiced Ember in this really did a good job. It's a very vocal performance that requires you to do a lot of different things. There's scenes where she gets angry, she gets happy, she gets intimate. There's scenes where she gets dramatic. There's just a lot of stuff that the Pixar family had her do, specifically in the script that they made here, that really brings out the Ember character in every way possible. And like I said, I think the voice performance is very, very strong here. So the Ember character, very fleshed out, very interesting. I definitely felt very invested in her journey over the course of the movie. And I also like the film's message about being open to trying new things. See, even small things like Wade being able to try spicy food, because before this scene occurred, it's believed that water characters can't have any kind of fire food or spicy foods. Small things like Ember being able to try to touch hands with Wade just to see what happens, because it's a point in the movie where their romantic relationship starts to blossom even more. Just being kind of like what Wade even tells Ember in one scene. If it's awful, if you don't like it, if something terrible is about to happen, we'll stop. We'll just That's the beauty about just trying something, is if you don't like it, you don't got to do it again. If you don't like it, or if it's uncomfortable, you don't have to do it again. And so that's kind of what that elemental is trying to tell us, is that sometimes trying a new thing isn't always the most terrible thing to do. Sometimes there is rewards and there is benefits about knowing about trying something new, just trying something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone for once. And I think the way that they presented this message was very strong in this movie. I also really liked how the elements interact with their environment. So, like with Wade and Ember are out somewhere, and it's like specifically a place for water characters. Wade has to be cautious about like what kind of chair or what kind of object he can give Ember so that she can travel along in the water with him and stuff like that. There's just small things that the film does. Just like I think the plant characters have you know plants growing out of their armpits to show, that they're growing like hairs there and stuff like that. Just the way that the elements interact with the environment, I thought was very, very strong here. It's not just elements of the earth as characters, they do interact with the environment in ways that you would hope that these elements would be able to interact with the environment as well. But for my negatives of Elemental, why ultimately I probably wouldn't rank this amongst like Toy Story or Monsters Inc. or Inside Out as some of the best Pixar films, but certainly a really good one. But for some of its negatives, the film really only spends time with three different elements of the Earth. We almost never get to find out what the rock characters are like, if it even has any. There's a suggestion of wind characters, but not really. There's more so cloud characters more than anything else. And I don't know if this is more so an Animal Kingdom thing or not, but maybe viruses. I think that's more so an Animal Kingdom thing, more so than an element of the Earth. But there's just a lot of time spent on the water characters and the fire characters. We do see a lot of like grass and wood and stuff like that every once in a while for other elements, but for the most part, the film does mostly exclusively focus on the fire and water characters almost entirely throughout the movie. And that's really too bad. I really would have liked to have seen what other elements of the earth are doing on this world and kind of what role they play. Are some of them lower in the economic scale than others and stuff like that? What do some of them do for work? If they do want to go the viruses route, are they kind of the criminals of this world and things like that? So I think just fleshing out the world even more, I think would have been really, really cool. It is a very, like I said, very visually appealing movie. They definitely spent a lot of time on the visuals and what they look like. There's just certain questions I had as referring to, like, what do characters outside of fire, water, and nature, what do all those other elements do in this world? Because, like I said, it does focus a lot on the fire and the water characters in this movie. And for the most part, too, as much as I like the Wade character, it was kind of hard to buy into his romantic turn with Ember, because it is kind of a clumsy character, because it is a character that, yeah, he can do his job pretty respectfully as this inspector. By the time the film gives this romantic turn that Ember and Wade might be falling in love, it does feel a little rough. It doesn't feel as smooth as I'm sure Pixar was hoping for. So I don't know if they just could have had Ember and Wade meet under different circumstances, or just do something a little different with them in the writing department, because by the time we do have that shift into the more romantic stuff with them, because I would say this is kind of Pixar's rom-com, like their first rom-com of a movie. Um, I think it would have been easier to buy into the romantic term with Wade and Ember if they found a scenario where it was more romantic than just, hey, these pipes need to be fixed in your store and stuff like that. And for the most part, too, and I know these are both Disney films, so I guess it's within the same family of movies, but for the most part, I did feel Elemental was kind of like a B-list version of Zootopia. Zootopia did cover race and immigration and all this stuff, I think a little bit more stronger than this film did. I also thought Zootopia kind of grounded its world a little bit better as far as what are the can and can't do's of the animal creatures in that movie. And like I said, Elemental focuses on some of those element characters, but not really all of them. So besides the fire and the water characters, we really don't get a chance to learn about the other characters either. So for me personally, it did feel like a B-list version of Zootopia in that regard. So maybe Elemental could have found a way to not feel like it's brother slash sister movie Zootopia in the Disney universe. It did feel like a B-list version of that for the most part. And for the most part, too, this film doesn't feel as full packaged as some other Pixar films. Like when you watch Toy Story, you really get to know all the characters. You know the exact rules of the toys, what they can do around humans and things like that. When you watch Monsters, Inc., you know the exact rules of the monsters. You know the world, how the world works. You know, you could probably explain how all the rules in that world work and stuff like that. I don't think Elemental has that quite of a punch the same way those earlier Pixar films did. It's not quite as full package as those other films. Even something like Inside Out, like I felt like I knew the rules of the emotions and what they could and couldn't do for a person and things like that. It just didn't feel as fully packaged as those other films did. And because, like I said, just because there is a little poked holes in the film where it's just like, okay, well, how would that work? How would that work? How would that work? What's this class of characters like and things like that. So I guess at the end of the day, I was left with a lot more questions, and I felt like there was more to be desired with the other elements of the Earth and how exactly they fit into this world too. But overall, I'm going to give Elemental an 8.5 out of 10. It's a very good movie. It's definitely a very visually satisfying movie for sure. It has some very strong messages. Definitely love the character of Ember a lot. But like I said, there is just enough negatives here where I don't think I could put it as enough like a big top tier movie like the other Pixar films are, like Toy Story and Monsters Inc. and stuff. But it's still a very fun movie. It's still a great Pixar movie. It's just not quite as great as some of the really, really good Pixar movies. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. I do recommend Elemental, but do go into this film knowing that it's not perfect, but there is a lot of things to enjoy about it. So it's an 8.5 out of 10 for me.